brother wants to call me at the start of this. I'm gonna have to get at him later. Okay, welcome. We're gonna recap AfroBasket. AfroBasket ended yesterday. As mentioned on other streams, didn't really like I was away for some of it, so I watched it obviously while I was away, but wasn't able to do some streams, do some live shows. And then right beforehand, I got sick. Uh, on the morning before I was going to preview it, or the night before I was going to preview it, whatever it was. But I've been tweeting about it the whole time, posting updates, different things. Not many people were, unfortunately, but it was a good tournament, like really good tournament, like really strong AfroBasket this year. The atmosphere also was great with Angola, who ended up winning the entire thing. They were the hosts. Whenever the host wins their tournament, be it the Continental Cup, whatever it is, obviously the crowd's going to be very loud. But Angola went out, handled business, thought it was great. Great sort of month for the sport of basketball. I know a lot of people are like, hey, the NBA is not around, so it's boring or whatever. Find some other things to watch. The WNBA has been really captivating this year, like really legitimately captivating this year. And then we have these Continental Cups, two of which are already done. Right now, the AmeriCup is going on, and EuroBasket is going to be starting this week. We'll have both of those tournaments this week, by the way. Before we get into this AfroBasket recap, should mention that before EuroBasket starts Wednesday, tonight, Joe DeLera and I are going to get on live and preview everything you need to know about EuroBasket. Again, it's not every single detail specifically, like that's not what it is, but it's everything you need to know about the tournament, all the relevant stuff. And EuroBasket, stuff is easier to pull from, find rosters. There's just more demand. There's going to be a lot more EuroBasket coverage, I think, from people than other tournaments, unfortunately. But that's like part of it. But it's understandable. Better players, more teams, better teams, so on and so forth. The AmeriCup, though, is going on right now too. We're in the middle of group play. So this should be cool. Shout out to my guy Hector in the chat. Oh, I should plug the Discord channel, actually. Off the timeline Discord. If you need an invite, let me know. I will put the link in the description after this. But we started the Discord channel. We really soft launched it last week, but we want to get some more people in there, get it more active. But we have every sport there, every single sports league. And if we're missing any, like if you want rugby, like we could add it for you. We don't have that right now, but we, basketball, baseball, tennis, golf, football, soccer, boxing, MMA, all the various leagues in those sports, the relevant ones. So off the timeline Discord, it's free. Also, should have mentioned that it's free. FREE. You don't have to pay anything. Okay, now let's do this. So we have AfroBasket to discuss. So we will do some screen sharing, as I love to do on this. A couple different things. First, let's start off with the actual tournament, and it's like an inside joke at this point that I'm just using Wikipedia, but Wikipedia has like the best navigation, sort of like the best interface, the best sort of setup for this thing. Ultimately, it's just kind of what it is. So here we have AfroBasket, just the sort of layout for it, right? And let's actually rearrange this a little bit so I could see this cleaner on my screen. What we have here is, I don't think I made that clean at all for you. I'm working on it. Join the Discord. Hector, you could put a link into Discord in the chat if you want. In case people see this after the fact. And so that I can just copy it and post it in the description after. So here's the sort of layout for AfroBasket by seeding. We'll go group by group and we'll bracket at the end. And then after that, I want to show you the FIBA rankings for the African teams, as well as just looking at some of the stats from this tournament, and then we'll go home. Because I got to be back tomorrow night, or tonight rather, and tomorrow night. But tonight for EuroBasket preview, and then tomorrow night or early Wednesday, I will look into the AmeriCup knockout stage, because the knockout stage is going to be starting soon. So here's AfroBasket sort of seeding, how it was arranged. Angola the host, Angola the highest ranked team other than South Sudan in this tournament. The two favorites in this tournament were Angola, South Sudan. Cameroon was also up there. Senegal was fairly high up there as well. From what I'm remembering, the Ivory Coast wasn't too far behind. Let's see how things actually played out. So Group A, we'll go one by one. Group A, Ivory Coast, Cape Verde. Cape Verde, as people may remember, they were in the World Cup in 2023. I think it was their first ever World Cup, as a matter of fact. Cape Verde did pretty well. Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Rwanda. Rwanda was last. That wasn't typically a surprise. Congo didn't have like Jonathan Kaminga, for example, but because he's dealing with his own contract situation as far as the NBA goes and trying to figure out how long his NBA career is going to last, so to speak. Not that he'll be out of the NBA, but we have that game between Congo and Rwanda would have determined basically who else was going to move on, and Rwanda ended up losing at 65-58, so it is what it is. Ivory Coast and Cape Verde, it was always going to be one of those two to win the group, and ultimately the Ivory Coast handled business in a entertaining game against Cape Verde. As a matter of fact, one of the better games of the group stage, 82-81. It finished, Ivory Coast finished really strong in that fourth quarter. So they win that group. Group B, we had Nigeria, Cameroon, Tunisia, Madagascar. I thought Tunisia would be a little bit better, but the thing is, Tunisia also was in a tough group with the Nigerian national team, with Cameroon. Nigeria had Josh Okogie. Josh Okogie is one of the best players in this tournament, or was one of the best players in this tournament, I'd say, now that the tournament's over. Tunisia, you've seen them in the World Cup. And Madagascar doesn't typically, they're not typically a factor, unfortunately, in these tournaments, but it was good to see them, obviously. And they play Cameroon really tough, to be fair. Madagascar, they play Cameroon really, really tough. You see it here, 80-77. And it was a legit 80-77. It wasn't like a fake comeback and what have you. Like it was tight the whole way. Cameroon ended up pulling away very slightly, but they only won by 3 points. It was a good run for Cameroon in this moment. And Nigeria, they took care of business. They took care of business in group play. They ended up sweeping the group, and they had a great point differential. So you're averaging at that point 16 points per win. Group C, Angola, the hosts, as expected. 50-point differential positive in their direction. Guinea, South Sudan, Libya. Then losing this first game to Guinea was one of the stunning outcomes in this tournament, and is why South Sudan ended up kind of just flopping in this tournament. South Sudan had very high expectations. They were one of the favorites to win, ultimately could not get it done, in large part because of this one loss. Now, you see the point differentials plus 53, despite having a 1-2 record. You almost never see that. Legitimately, you almost never see that. Like, in what world are you getting a plus 53 point differential after losing a game, losing 2 games, and winning the other? So let's see how South Sudan got here and how this group played out a little bit. Libya, unfortunately, just got tonked, just got decimated in this bracket. South Sudan loses his first game. Nuni has a really good game, but other than that, I mean, they a lot of miscommunications on defense, trying to do too much, turnovers at the wrong time, just untimely misses, not cashing in on some good looks as well. And Guinea was, man, Alpha Diallo, one of the better players in this tournament. Had 28 in that first game as well. So South Sudan ends up beating Libya by 115-52. This is a 63-point victory. which is fairly ridiculous. And then from here, you have South Sudan losing to Angola, which is a great game. 66-64. Libya gets tonked, as I mentioned. South Sudan, so despite winning by 63, they dropped to 53-point differential, but they had a better point differential than Nigeria, who was 3-0, Ivory Coast, who was 3-0, then Angola, who was 3-0. But unfortunately for them, it didn't end up mattering. But South Sudan, we'll get to them a little bit later. That was one of the stunners of the tournament. And then, speaking of stunners here, Group D, you have Egypt, Senegal, Mali, and Uganda. So it felt like Mali and Uganda would be what determines who moves on as far as that third team goes, but very much felt like Egypt and Senegal would be above them. So South Sudan has the best point differential in group play, and they're plus 53, and they're 1-2, which is just, again, I don't know if that's ever happened before. I don't know what what level of basketball? Like, I don't know what level of basketball has that happened before, but we'll get to the knockout stage now. Play it out from there as you get to group play. You have like the Asia Cup. The Asia Cup's very similar in terms of format, 16 teams, and then you get to 12 instead of getting to 8. So the top 3 from each group move on. The last one from each group gets eliminated, and basically what happens is the top 4 teams, like the group winners, all get buys into the quarterfinals, which I think is a great format instead of just going from 16 to 8. It's a little more interesting because you have more teams involved, and then you have what you had in this tournament with Mali. So let's start here. Quarterfinals. So Angola gets a bye. Egypt gets a bye. Ivory Coast gets a bye. And Nigeria gets a bye. Buys don't always matter. Cape Verde beats the crap out of Tunisia, 87-54. Cameroon beats Congo. Mali beats Guinea, 70-67. Okay? 70-67 to get to the quarterfinals. And then South Sudan just flat against Senegal, couldn't hit shots. It was really disappointing that they couldn't even get back to the quarterfinals. But this is the risk you run by not taking care of business at group play. Like, those early games matter. If they're even just 2-1, and with their point differential, especially, like, they would have had a much better, not an easy matchup, but an easier matchup, I'll say. Angola versus Cape Verde in the quarterfinals. Angola wins by 10. That was to be expected. So far, the only, like, we haven't had any big surprises other than South Sudan to this point, as far as what we're talking about specifically in this tournament. So Angola beats Cape Verde, not a huge surprise. Cameroon beats Egypt, not a huge surprise, although the way they beat them was surprising. I didn't think there was going to be a 27-point win at all. At all. That sets up a really good semifinal. We'll get to that in a little bit. Mali, Ivory Coast. That is an upset. I don't remember what Ivory Coast was favored by, but they were absolutely favored. And then Nigeria and Senegal. Senegal beats Nigeria. Nigeria, I mean, they had this run, man. I've heard that the Federation has kind of bungled this, but anyone from Nigeria or more familiar with Africa. I didn't even get to my basketball Africa League story. Maybe I'll get to that later. But Nigeria had this run. You know, they had a few years ago, they had Gabe Vincent, they had KZ Okpala, they had Jaleel Okafor. I think Josh Okogie was on that team as well, so on and so forth. They beat Team USA in the Olympic warm-up games, not the Olympics themselves. Made it to the Olympics, and then from there, like, they just haven't quite been the same. They've really bungled that. So it would have been interesting to see them progress deeper into this tournament. They did get to the quarterfinals, but after going 3-0 in group play, they kind of just came out flat against Senegal. So you have a semifinal here that's Angola, Cameroon, Mali, Senegal. Angola and Cameroon. This game is one of the best games of the summer that they had here. A classic. Let me actually go down to see if we can get more of a descriptive description here. That doesn't make any sense. I don't think it does. It sounds bad. Don't quote that. Angola Angola has a great fourth quarter. It looked like they were going to lose. They have this comeback toward the end of the game. Cameroon really had it in control, but then once it became a shot making contest, Angola was able to get the better of them. It was really interesting to see how that turned out. The attendance here, you see at 12,700 people. Yo, people from Angola came out for this tournament. It was awesome. Like, the atmosphere. I know it was a home game for them. They were playing for their 12th gold medal at this point. It was the semifinals. And then Mali beating Senegal. Oh my goodness. Mali's run was incredible. So Jean-Jacques, I'm going to butcher his last name, Jean-Jacques. It's not Boise. I think it's Boasi. Yeah. I was trying to remember. Boasi has 19. He has a 40-point game next. We'll get to that in a bit. But Senegal loses here. Koulibaly, who's one of the better players on Mali, gets 23 points. Mali went on this, it was a very spirited run. They would get these key stops and key moments. Their help defense, I thought, was really good down the stretch of these games. Their shot making was obviously very timely. The looks that they were generating, like, it felt real. It didn't feel like just some dark magic, so to speak. as you would say about some teams on their runs. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like a fluke. It felt like they were just rising to the moment more than anything else. And then you have a situation where Mali, who has never gotten more than a bronze medal in this tournament and only had one bronze medal ever in AfroBasket. That was in like 1972. They're playing for a gold medal for the first time ever. Angola has 11 gold medals leading up to this. They're playing for their 12th. You have Senegal, you have Cameroon. Senegal comes into this having had multiple bronze medals in a row, 2 straight, and also 3 of the last 4. And then they're playing for another bronze medal here. Jean-Jacques Boissy gets 40 points in the bronze medal game. 40. Go look it up. I'm sure FIBA's already posted it. It was an excellent performance. The performance maybe of the tournament. They beat up Cameroon like badly. Like they absolutely, like Yves Misi unfortunately couldn't bring back a medal for Cameroon. But Senegal earns their bronze medal. Jean-Jacques also had a really like a great moment in his press conference. He broke down, he teared up, talked about how special it is to win this medal. It's Senegal's 3rd straight. Now they have bronze medals in 4 of 5 AfroBaskets, 3 straight bronze medals. Bronze medals are great. Bronze medals are great. I'm sure they would want to get a gold or a silver, preferably a gold. Bronze medals are still great. Like that look, a medal's a medal. Serbia partied after they got silver in the World Cup 2 years ago and bronze in the Olympics last year. Like medaling is hard in any tournament, doesn't matter. Obviously, you know, like Mali, for example, they got destroyed in the game against Angola. You really saw it unfolding. Every quarter just felt like they just could not score. It was excruciatingly tough to watch from an offensive standpoint. They get routed 70-43. It wasn't ever competitive. Maybe the first quarter, but it felt like Angola was going to pull away, and they eventually did. So Angola ends up beating Mali. They get 12 gold medals. This is their first gold medal in a while, though. They hadn't had one since, I want to say 2013-ish. They're hosting this. Angola, a lot of people know them primarily for being like the one of the early victims of the Dream Team in 1992. But Angola is a really good, spirited basketball community. They have a competitive league out there, and Angola's, you know, they did a great job hosting, it appeared, at least from afar. I don't know about the internal stuff. And Mali gets their first silver medal in AfroBasket. Mali, by the way, this is the next thing I want to share. Let's actually just look at the final standings, and then we'll look at some rankings and see how this could affect the rankings, as a matter of fact. So that was my chair, not anything else. Promise. Angola 6-0, only team that went undefeated in this tournament. You had a few teams that were winless, no surprises there. As a matter of fact, Mali was the big surprise here. And then the awards, Angola gets their 12th title. You see the all-tournament teams here. The MVP, Dundao from Angola, where does he play currently? I know he was in Basketball Africa League. Yeah, okay. So he's still in the Basketball Africa League. And actually has, yeah, pretty exclusively been in Angola. I felt like in watching this tournament, I was like, I wonder if he'd give Europe a shot. I'm not saying Euro League, although maybe, but I think you know, it'd be interesting to see some of these guys like branch out a little bit more. But I think with this tournament, let's look at how the rankings may be impacted. South Sudan is evidently like they're probably going to take the biggest hit, and they took good guys. Like they took a bunch of guys who've been playing with them. Not like they didn't have their A squad. Nobody really has their A+ squad in any of these tournaments. Nobody is able to bring their A+ squad in any tournament really, just because of like injuries and things of that nature. Like even Team USA last year, they had LeBron, they had Steph, they had Kevin Durant, but Kawhi Leonard got hurt, and Kawhi Leonard was supposed to be on that team. Jaylen Brown probably should have been on that team, according to some people. Jalen Brunson as well. And, you know, we could talk about this or whatever, but this is the reality of these competitions and the timing of where basketball is right now. It's very hard to bring out the best of the best for every single tournament. Some teams are just closer than others, and you want to be as close as possible. So here we have the FIBA rankings. This is specific to Africa, so this isn't the world rankings. The world rankings look like this. So we'll load that up real quick just so you can see. The world rankings look like this. This will be heavily affected after Eurobasket and the completion of the America Cup as well. We'll see a lot of moving and shaking as it pertains to these things. But here we have the rankings for AfroBasket. This has not been updated yet because FIBA is just going to update all the rankings later on, probably, hopefully late September. I think that would make sense. Eurobasket ends September 14th, and then the FIBA World Cup qualifiers start in November for everybody. So I think the rankings should be updated in between that. Next year, there are no major like continental cups or anything like that. The World Cup is going to be the next big thing. That's in 2027. So until then, it's primarily going to be qualification for those tournaments, for that tournament in these windows. And then obviously everyone will have an eye on the Olympics in 2028 as well. So here's Africa: South Sudan, Ivory Coast, Angola, top three. Mali, who again got silver in this tournament, silver, ranked 83 in the world. I think it was 90 recently. 12th in the Africa. 12. Okay. They get the silver medal. They're going to jump. I don't know how far. It just depends because they have a weird point system. It's kind of like if you follow boxing, BoxRec has a weird analytical database that assesses their rankings, and it gives you some weird results. But regardless, Mali deserves to rise up here. I don't think they're going to jump Cameroon or Senegal, for example. I think they'll probably at least get to 10, but I also think there's a case for them to go higher than that. Just Senegal would have to go up, and they should, and Cameroon would have to go up, and they probably should. I think both of them should leap ahead of Cape Verde and Nigeria, considering what we just saw. But body of work does have some impact into this, right? So that's part of it. And then looking at the rest of this, so Angola, Tunisia's 4, Angola's 3. I do wonder if they'll just go straight to 1 now, but like there are a lot of points in between them and South Sudan. There's a world where South Sudan doesn't fall enough, but South Sudan I think should drop to, like, in my opinion, this is not what's going to happen. I don't think, because again, it's tough to assess like how they're going to do this. South Sudan probably drops to, in my opinion, 3 or something along those lines. Maybe you just swap Angola and South Sudan and be done with it. Ivory Coast did go 3-0 in group play, but they finished 7th in AfroBasket. I don't know how much that's going to affect their ranking, if at all, but Angola should definitely at least jump them. We'll see what happens with Tunisia, Egypt, Nigeria, Cape Verde. Just a weird quartet of teams. None of them medaled. And as a matter of fact, they finished, let's see, Nigeria finished 5th, Egypt finished 6th, Cape Verde finished 8th in the standings when you look at AfroBasket. And then Ivory Coast was actually 7th. And then you have Tunisia, who wasn't great in this tournament. They finished 12th. I think they're going to take a hit as well. How you assess that is going to be weird. I think some people would say the right thing to quote unquote do would be you just move Senegal, Cameroon, like above all those teams. Mali, you put them in there somewhere because they got the silver medal. I don't know if you want to overreact to one tournament, but I do think you should earn status, as it pertains to this, as it pertains to these tournaments and how it looks. And right now, and looking at just sort of the rest, like after Mali, it's like Uganda didn't do anything in this tournament, Rwanda, Libya, like so on and so forth, Madagascar either. So I don't know how much of an impact this is going to have on any of that. You can kind of keep some of those teams where they are, in my opinion, just because like they at least qualify for AfroBasket, and there are some other teams who did not qualify for AfroBasket who are in that sort of neighborhood. But the big thing to me, the big takeaways to me in terms of how the rankings should play out is South Sudan should just drop, not precipitously, but you got to take a little bit of a hit here, I think, in my opinion. And then you have Mali, who should go up a considerable amount. Let's look at some stats before we get out of here. So these are the AfroBasket stats. Alpha Diallo, unsurprisingly, one of the top guys in this tournament. He leads in scoring, 24 points per game in this tournament. It was a 4-game stint, but still, Alpha Diallo, like, again, from the jump, Alpha Diallo was one of the reasons that this tournament went sideways, if you really look at it, because South Sudan ended up losing because of him. And that greatly impacted how this tournament went. From there, John Jacques Bouassi, 19 points a game, third in this tournament in scoring, and he had the 40-point game. So without that, I'm not sure where he is, but listen, that's the performance of the tournament. Like, hats off to him. Did it in a medal game too. Did it in a medal round. Did it in a bronze medal game. So shout out to him. Nuni Omant, unsurprisingly, the leader for South Sudan. He was up here as well. We'll shout out a couple other people. Josh Okogie, 15 points a game, roughly, with some rounding. Mabadi Diakite, also from Guinea, also one of the guys who was a force in that game against South Sudan. And then you have even Misi didn't score much in this tournament, huh? Eddie Tavares, hell yeah. From Cape Verde, and Will Tavares as well. Where is Eve Misi? I think he scored a little bit more in this tournament. Although, to be fair, he wasn't nearly as impactful as I thought he'd be. Like Bruno Fernando, for example, I'm glad his name popped up for Angola. If his games, his performances, especially down the stretch, felt larger than the stat sheet, it just felt like he had a lot of impact. I'd be curious to know what his advanced numbers are, if that's even available. But Bruno Fernando, who I think is like, I've always thought he could do something in the NBA, but it didn't really translate in that way. Let's see, Misi, huh? Let's look to that a little bit more later. Curious. Okay, so this is the rebounding. Eddie Tavares, no surprise if you follow, because Eddie Tavares, I don't know if you know this, but one of the better bigs overseas. Also, he's like 9'17", giant man. He's actually 7'3", but he did a great job in this tournament of just like protecting the paint, being a force on the glass. But unfortunately, Cape Verde just didn't really have enough. And then you're looking at, let's see the efficiency rating, because FIBA has a way to do this. That's that they really lean on heavily. Like when you go to their box scores, the efficiency is something that pops up often before the points. Aliou Diarra from Mali. That's real. Yeah. Okay. That tracks. Nunio Ma third, Eddie Tavares here. Yeah. Matt Costello, who we didn't talk about enough, probably from the Ivory Coast. Yeah, Matt Costello from the Ivory Coast. One of the only white dudes in this tournament. He's been playing for the team, for national team, for a while. As a matter of fact, I know it's stunning for some people, but hey, naturalization, it's a great thing. Alpha Diallo here in terms of efficiency as well. Jean-Jacques Boissy, Jeremiah Hill from Cameroon, Josh Okogie, 15th. Yeah, this tracks about with what we saw. I think the other thing to take away from this is just like, so this is something I wanted to get to, actually. I might as well just do it now. And this is a while. I think I missed Eve Misi's name. Hold on. I think I figured out. Yeah, here it is. Okay. They put his full name. Yeah. Okay. That makes more sense. So he's at my mistake. Okay. He was here before. I was like, where is he? Points per game. Let's go to Eve Misi right now because I wanted to figure this out. He had 13, right? Okay. Yes. He's 15th in scoring. Okay. For Cameroon. I was like, I saw him getting buckets inside. Like I saw him being really effective from the field, around the basket, so on and so forth. I don't know how much longer he's going to be with the Pelicans now that they have an interesting situation on their roster. But Misi, regardless, he had a nice tournament individually. He averaged basically 13 and 7. That's fine. Okay, so basketball in Africa has really grown more over the last few years. I don't know if people have been paying attention to this, but and then I'll say this and then we'll get out of here. So in 2019 or so, this is like right before COVID. This is like late 2019. So this is before the Basketball Africa League like officially launched. They had a showcase. So I was covering the Nets around this time, Brooklyn Nets. They had a showcase in it may have even been 2018, but regardless, it was not that long before COVID. It was showcased at the Nets practice facility. Nets practice facility is in Brooklyn, um, not too far from the Barclays Center, like one train stop away. You can walk there, I suppose, although you could just take the train one stop. Luol Deng is there. I think Pops Mitsubansu was there. A lot of dudes who are trying to and have grown basketball in Africa. And I was there covering it. I wasn't sure what it was going to be, and it was essentially a showcase slash maybe even a combine. There were some players that I connected with also, and some of these guys ended up playing in the basketball Africa League. Nuni Omat actually was somebody who the Nets had in camp in the G League, who ended up going overseas, who's played in Africa, who's played in different parts of the world, who's played in Puerto Rico, as a matter of fact, which league that I'm very familiar with, the BSN, very competitive. He's been one of the better players there, actually. And he's played for South Sudan on a national level, on a FIBA national level. So at this combine, you have like all these dudes just getting after it. And you start hearing later on, years later down the road, about like an Eve Misi, for example, or a Common Maluach now, who's going to be in the NBA, who, as somebody who follows high school and college as well, I try to keep up with everything. And Maluach was just a monster prospect who I was terrified of ahead of the World Cup in 2023, because they were playing Jesus. All right. They were playing the Puerto Rican national team. And I was like, man, I hope this guy doesn't get minutes. He was raw, so he didn't play much in the World Cup. And then the Olympics, you saw him a little bit more. I think he's going to be a good NBA player, a damn good one. Like, damn good one. He's so skilled. I think with basketball in Africa, though, like to see the growth, to see the Basketball Africa League now hit this, they've been around for like a half decade at this point. And I remember talking to some people like at that showcase at Brooklyn. It was like an all-day thing. I remember being there for hours. I remember being there for a long-ass time. It was early. It went to deep into the afternoon. I remember being there for hours. I don't remember how long exactly. It was like a weird rainy day, too. It was gloomy and shit. But the Basketball Africa League, I think, is really dope. It comes on at a good time in the year, too, because there's not that many leagues that are like starting in the spring going into the summer, or starting in like late winter going into the spring. The BSN in Puerto Rico does that. They tend to start in the spring and they'll go into the summer. You also have Canada's league, which I think is in the playoffs right now. They're in a postseason right now. They end in summer as well. There's not a lot of leagues to do that. So Basketball Africa League, I think it's smart, which you can occasionally get, especially if you go deeper into the year. Canada's gotten this, and definitely Puerto Rico's gotten this. You get guys who are playing like overseas in Europe, and then they'll end up playing in Puerto Rico for a little bit of the summer, which I think is really cool. But yeah, Basketball Africa League has grown. Basketball in Africa has grown. I thought AfroBasket was really, really good this year. I think the Asia Cup was also very captivating this year. Filipino fans obviously are a story of the tournament. Unfortunately, they couldn't get to a medal game, but Asia had a great tournament, with Australia winning, with China coming within a point of that gold medal game, which is really, really captivating. Iran had a hell of a run. Lebanon couldn't quite get back to where they did a few years ago, but I still think they demonstrated they could be competitive even without their best guy, Wael Arakji. And then with the African tournament, yeah, Angola brought it this year. Mali, hell of a run. Senegal, Cameroon, obviously. We'll see how the rankings shake out, and then we'll see. World Cup qualifiers should be interesting. Africa gets to send 5 teams into the World Cup. World Cup is comprised of 32 teams that will be played in 2027, I believe, in Saudi Arabia. So I'm sure that there was a big transaction there. You have 12 teams from Europe, typically 8 from Asia. So that's 20. And then you have 5 from Africa and the remaining 7 from the Americas. So that's how the World Cup shakes out. That's what we're going to turn our attention to next. Well, as far as African basketball goes, basketball in Africa goes, you're going to see more players from Africa and of African descent playing in the NBA, playing in some of the top leagues in Europe, playing in some of the top leagues internationally, Australia as well, because the NBL is a very, very good league, and China, so on. Like you're going to see that, and yeah, it's a great time for basketball in Africa. It's awesome. So we'll be back on the channel tonight. Actually, we'll be previewing EuroBasket. We'll do a deep dive on EuroBasket. It'll probably be a longer show. It'll probably be an hour plus, knowing Joe and I. And then tomorrow night, maybe Wednesday morning, we'll see. We'll be doing, and if you have a preference, let me know. We'll be doing an AmeriCup knockout stage preview because the AmeriCup is going on right now. We're in group play. Today, there's some good games. Puerto Rico versus Canada being one of them. Winner is going to win the group. Team USA just lost to Uruguay yesterday by 1 point after needing overtime to beat the Bahamian national team. So Team USA now is going to be in a situation where they're going to face Brazil. Brazil's the favorite of the tournament, and Team USA could potentially be 1-2 in group play. And Team USA, like, they mess around, lose to Brazil, lose by a good amount, and the point differential doesn't shake out in their favor, Team USA could be eliminated. So we'll see what happens there. But AmeriCup going on right now. EuroBasket starts Wednesday. AfroBasket's done. Asia Cup is done. We're halfway home with the Continental Cups. More on this channel will come very soon. There will be boxing content probably ahead of, likely ahead of, definitely ahead of, I should say, Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Crawford. Looking forward to that. We'll have some stuff on that. And WNBA playoff stuff once the regular season winds up. But we're going to be international basketball heavy right now because I love this stuff. And I do see people actually watching this stuff a little bit. I don't know how many saw this one, but we'll see what happens. All right. Follow the Discord also. I'll put that in the description. Off the Timeline Discord is free to join. Just don't be an asshole. That's the only rule. Just don't be an asshole. Be active. And it's early. It's early stages, but hopefully that'll become something. So